India has the highest tariff rate amongst any major world economy, imposing an average of 14% across all goods, slightly less on weighted basis. It includes numbers as high as 20% on clothing and goes up to a whopping 52% for sugars and confectionery, transport 28%. Prime Minister Modi appears ready to be conciliatory. India recently lowered tariffs for smartphone components and on foreign motorcycles, moves that would benefit the companies. Kaushik Basu used to be the chief economic advisor to the government of India, previously served as the chief economist at the World Bank, now professor of international studies at Cornell. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Why does India have such high tariffs? Is it blunt and basic protectionism, or is it basically revenue raising?
Thank you very much for having me. It's a complicated story, but historically, India's tariffs used to be much higher. So it has been brought down, paradoxical though that may sound, to where it is. I feel a little bit of pressure to lower it further is worthwhile, simply because trade is valuable. And the protectionist spirit, which used to be very high in India historically, which has come down subsequently, is the direction in which to go. So it's not that we should bargain about this item versus that item. That's never a good way for the government or governments to intervene in market. But a general lowering is a good idea anyway.
Right. But Donald Trump has always loved tariffs, and he's described India and Prime Minister Modi as the tariff king. Do you think that Modi's arrived with a bag of concessions? Because I doubt that that might even work, considering the US president's made it clear there will be no exceptions to his tariff regime.
You know what does seem to be troubling United States is the fact that it runs a trade deficit with India, which is quite large, $46 billion. So that is the problem that is triggering a lot of this discussion. But whereas as far as the tariffs go, India has used this policy across the world without discrimination against countries. So I feel, yes, there can be a valid, useful discussion on this, but much more important would be to try to send some of India's import demands to United States. And the best product I can think of is oil, where, as you probably know, it was because of US sanctions against Russia in 22, after the Ukraine war started. Rather poorly designed, I have to say, the US sanctions were, that there were countries that were not buying from Russia, but other countries like India was buying, and Indian oil import from Russia went through the roof. In fact, India now imports roughly the same amount. $46 billion, which is the deficit with US, is the oil purchase from Russia. Diverting some of that is really the way to bridge this gap.
Is it realistic? Is it realistic to I mean, there's a perversion in what we're talking about, bearing in mind global politics at the moment, but essentially substituting Russian purchases, which were controversial to begin with US purchases of oil and gas. Is that realistic?
You know, I think it is possible, because this, speaking of buying from Russia, where last year India overtook China, there does need to be some correction. And this was, I feel, the design of the sanctions which caused it. So correcting that now is worthwhile. What is not worth it, and would be a mistake on the part of the United States, is to try and not have a deficit vis-a-vis any country. If trade is balanced with every country, it's like going back to the world of barter. Right. We don't want that. There will be deficits with some, surpluses with some, and you accept that.
Good to see you, sir. We'll talk more. Thank you. Giving us great insight. I'm grateful. Thank you.